Gives me a huge pleasure to introduce, we have an international star, international rock star here tonight from across the ditch from New Zealand, and to share lots of wisdom and experience with you. Just to give you a bit of a rundown, Steve has been in the industry and he'll share his journey with you, but he's been in the industry for many years, and his reasoning to get in the industry because he wanted to help other people enjoy the benefits of health and fitness as he has enjoyed them, coming from a background in banking. He was a commercial banker for 20 years and a very successful one at that. However, in that challenge, he, in that journey of becoming very successful in his career and his financial situation, compromised his health. And that motivated him to look after himself, and when he looked after himself, then he wanted to look after other people. In that, he started a health club from scratch and built that from ground up, and built that to 2 health clubs. And so successful, they voted the New Zealand Health Clubs of the Year a number of years ago, and is very much respected in New Zealand. From there, built that, and he's now actually sold that, and still has a share in four health clubs. So he's very much a person who's very successful in business. We also have a great pleasure having him as our business partner in New Zealand and Australia. We formed the New Zealand College of Fitness, and now he's an integral part of the Max International College for Fitness Professionals. So he's here to share a little bit about himself and the things that may help make him become very successful, not just in the health and fitness industry, but in life. So without further ado, how about we just get on with the cure, and a big warm welcome to Steve Barrett.
Cool. Thank you, Kerry. I've been called a lot of things over the years, but I've never been called a rock star. In fact, I wouldn't want to share with you some of the things that I've been called over the years that might offend someone. Hey, it's a great honour to have the opportunity to come in all the way over from New Zealand and spend some time with you guys tonight and share a little bit about what I've done and where I've been, and hopefully plant a few seeds with some of you that you might be able to take away and germinate and use in the future. It's also a pleasure to see everyone looking so sensational. It's exciting to know that there's so many fantastic fitness professionals going to get out there and make such a huge difference to the health and fitness of so many people. I've had an interesting journey, as Kerry shared with you, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that as we go. Not too much, because I don't want to talk too much about me. It's more about what about you guys. Hopefully there'll be a lot of questions that you can store up as the night goes by, and we'll get through them at the end of the night. Often they are the things that have the most value at a session like this, the things that you really want to know about, and one question leads to another question, leads to another question. So make lots of notes and we can come back to those later on. The session night's called the 5 Ps of success. But I want to start really focusing on just covering what we're actually going to go through, and that's my goals for the night. And I'm going to help you guys identify your personal values as the starting point. I want to start there because this process was probably the very beginning of the transformation in the way I thought about myself and the way I was wired and the way I thought about business and where I was going to take my business life. I'm going to discuss with you the alignment of those personal goals with the business goals that you set. And it's interesting that the reality is, unfortunately, a lot of us don't even know what our personal goals are, and therefore how can we get alignment between what our personal goals are and what our business goals are. And often we go through our life not realising that our personal goals are not even remotely in alignment with our business goals or our career goals. And as a consequence, we never feel fulfilled. Can anyone relate to that? Absolutely. I think once you get a little bit further into your personal values, which I'm going to take you through an exercise, hopefully that'll have a little bit more meaning for you. Then we'll go through the 5 Ps of success, which are planning, my favourite, positioning, people, policy, and profit. Sounds really serious, but some of this sort of stuff is serious because it's serious by nature, because being in business is a serious thing, and being successful is a serious thing as well. And hopefully lots and lots of questions at the end. So, personal values. No. So I'll share a little bit about me first. It's all about me, don't forget. I'm 45 next week, but you're not allowed to sing happy birthday. Do I look that old? Okay, thanks.
What day? Steve, what day?
29th of January.
Oh,
Yeah.
mine's 24.
Is it?
Yeah, there you
Oh,
go.
congratulations. Yeah.
Aquarium, no, you're Capricorn.
Just an Aquarian. Yeah, just. I think it changes on the 1st of February, is it?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's got crap.
I've got no formal qualifications as such. I did the network PT qualification in New Zealand. I have done several economics and law and accounting papers. I had more training stuff down my throat when I was at Westpac than I can care to remember, but no formal qualifications beyond that. My basic background is 18 years in banking. And it's in that environment that I learned an awful lot about business. My very first job was a ledgers clerk, checking that the cheques were actually signed and the amounts in words and money actually matched, all the way through to when I finished my career with Westpac. I was head of corporate and commercial and property finance for Westpac in the South Island. A very large team of people and a very large amount of business that we used to manage. Some of which was incredibly successful, but some of them were dismal failures, and it's those ones where I learnt most. That at the times when things were tough, and I was about in the 1987 share market crash. Who can remember that? And we're now going through it all over again, but in a slightly different way. I purchased Pro Fitness in 1996, which is the health clubs that I own, and I continued to work in the bank for a year because I thought I could ride two horses with one bun, but I was sadly mistaken. And I didn't want to give away something. What do you think I didn't want to give away? Fantastic. Security. I love the security of the thing that went into my bank account every fortnight and everything else that went with it. And that was a year wasted of my life because I really didn't do justice to either of those two things. I left Westpac in 1997 and started to work full-time in the fitness business of Pro Fitness. And then in 2004, fortunately, a gentleman called Steve Jensen introduced me to Kerry and Rowena, and that was, personified the statement that the quality of the people in your life is directly proportional to the quality of your life. And the fact that I had developed a fantastic relationship with Steve Jensen, and he was willing to introduce me to Kerry and Rowie, opened the door for us to set up the New Zealand College of Fitness in New Zealand, and then ultimately for me to have a relationship with Kerry and Rowie in Australia as well. I was normal to start with. I actually had more hair then, and my buns are in much better shape there than they are now, I can assure you. So just a bit of light-hearted stuff. But my fitness journey is quite an interesting one. I was an overweight child. Spent my whole life overweight, and despite being quite successful at sport, I was successful in spite of myself. As you can see there, I was on a 2 handicap when I was 14, played representative golf, I played senior level cricket, but the fact is that I underachieved because my health and fitness wasn't important to me at that point in time. When I show you some pictures in a few seconds, that'll put that into perspective for you. One day I decided I needed to do something about that, and I got out of my chair in my office in Dunedin and walked down the road and joined Jenny Craig, took out a life membership. So I'm probably still a member, but I haven't been back. But the big thing that happened is I walked up Moray Place in Dunedin and joined the YMCA. And a couple of guys who in those days were the very early personal trainers took me under their wing and helped me discover strength training and change my life. And for those two guys doing what they did for me really set me down a whole different pathway. And I'm eternally grateful for them, and they're people that hold a very special place for me, not only in terms of what they achieved for me personally, but what it's allowed me to hopefully do for others as well. And that led to Pro Fitness, New Zealand College of Fitness, and Max. Okay. Here is a picture of me. You'll all know where that particular animal is based. Who knows where that picture's taken? SeaWorld. Yeah, and I call it the walrus and the whale. That's in 1990. I was about 125 kgs. I was living the corporate lifestyle. I was successful in my career as a banker, but I was also pretty good at the lunching and the wining and the dining part of it as well, and I was killing myself. And fortunately, I made a choice to do something about it. That's the same picture in 1996, and I don't know exactly, but I was about 88, ate about 88 kgs, and that was the journey that I'd been on. That's a picture of 1999 when I won the National Novice Amateur Bodybuilding title in New Zealand, which was the pinnacle of the transformation from being seriously overweight and killing myself to taking my training and whatnot really, really seriously. So that's, if you like, the pinnacle of my time in the fitness industry as far as participation is concerned. Pro Fitness is where I'm going to spend a lot of my time tonight and relate the stories that I can share with you too. That's a business that I bought in December 1996. At the time, it was a single club with 1,750 members. Although that's actually what I thought it had. What do you think it really had? Anyone want to take a guess?
A couple of hundred?
No, it was about 1,400. Yeah, so I paid for 350 members that I didn't actually get. So, but that was a great learning experience for me at the time. And in terms of when you're going to buy a business, you need to do your due diligence and do it really, 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 really well, and be sure that you're buying what you think you're buying. At that time, it had no policies, no systems. It was very unprofessional. It was reminiscent of the traditional bodybuilder's den, if you like. It was a place that would probably be representative of every single club of its type around at that particular point in time. But I saw in it some potential. 2004, we managed to win the New Zealand Fitness Club of the Year, and we built our second club in 2004. And we now have 4,750 members, and they are real members. Okay. So I sold the business. In September 2007, and at the time I left some money in on the sale of the business, and I have since converted that money back into equity in the business, and now own 25% of Pro Fitness and 25% of the business that purchased Pro Fitness, which is a two-club business in Wellington called Bodyworks, if anyone knows of the Bodyworks clubs in Wellington. So I made a decision to get out of the business, and then I made a decision to get back in the business because I still could see the long-term potential in the fitness industry from a club ownership point of view, but realising that my passion had turned away from being involved in the club day to day to being heavily focused on Max, New Zealand College of Fitness at the time, and now Max. And I'm only spending about 10 to 15 hours a week now involved with Pro Fitness, and that tends to be just a little bit of looking after the dollars and cents, making sure that's all nice and tidy, and mentoring and coaching some of the managers in the team so that they can really step up and take the business forward. The brand. That's a representation of the Pro Fitness brand. Everybody welcome is our byline. And the imagery is attempting to portray us as someone who welcomes everyone to the club. There is no particular shape or size, age or body type that we attract. We just want to attract everybody who wants to change their health and well-being, and that's how we've built our brand around that particular platform. It's been incredibly successful for us. When we launched this, what do you think we came up against? Any ideas? Yeah, who said that? Yeah, we copped the fair old chunk of flack, believe it or not. And in fact, we had one complaint go to the Advertising Standards Authority in New Zealand. because when we launched the brand, this was on a number of billboards around Christchurch and another represented in different sorts of ways. But that was never upheld by the Advertising Standards Authority, and it actually, in hindsight, while there was a little bit of a challenge for us at the time, it's worked really, really well for us, because it got people starting to think about who we were and what we were, and started talking about our brand, and that we were prepared to stand out, and that we actually genuinely were trying to attract people of different ages and different body types. I'm going to talk a little bit more about brand later on. The Northwood Club was built in 2002. It was a purpose-built club, 2,600 square metre club. We occupy the whole first floor and half of the ground floor in that building. And that's just a few photos of the inside. I'll hand out some PowerPoints in the moment for you guys to take away. Our Morehouse Ave Club. This used to be a wool store, so it's a bit of a silk purse out of a sow's egg. We're on the level 2. But on level 1 we have 400 undercover car parks. So that's a fantastic USP that we have, and it doesn't look like it's a 3-level building, but it is. On this level here is car parks. 400 undercover car parks makes it an incredibly attractive USP for our business. Not only are we probably the only club in Christchurch with its own dedicated car parks, they're all undercover. And that was a great platform for us to be able to build and make that club successful as well. That's a 3,350 square metre club. For those of you who think in square feet, that's a 33,000 square foot club, so that's a fairly big facility. Some pictures representing it. And most recently now into MAX, International College for Fitness Professionals, which is where most of my focus is now in support of Kerry and Rowena. So that's just a really, really quick snapshot about me. And where I've been and the things that I've done, which I really want to get behind and focus on personal values. But before I do, is there any questions about the journey that I've been on so far? Okay.
Steve, that is a question for you.
Yep.
What was your turning point? Like, what was your enough moment to get out of shape?
Great question. I was actually sitting at my desk. My wife, we had a 14-month-old daughter, and she was pregnant with twins, and due in about 6 weeks. I was sitting at my desk, and it was quite a hot day in Dunedin. It was probably about 16 or 17 degrees. And air conditioning didn't exist at that particular point. My tie, I can remember sitting there thinking my shirt's tight, my tie's tight, and it just, I don't know, I just snapped. And I think probably when I look back, although I've never really been able to pinpoint, it was about the children. It was about, if I don't do something about this is, I'm not gonna be there as they grow up and be able to support her. I just got out of my desk and walked down to Jenny Craig, as I said, and that cost me, I think, $400, and I had to go back later in the day to get my food. So that was probably another couple of $100, and I bought a 12-month membership at the YMCA and organised some personal training sessions. But I think it was behind it all was family and this thing here that was slowly strangling me. So, but maybe I'd been thinking about it a long time. I just didn't have the courage to face up to what I needed to face up to until that particular point. Yeah. Okay.
With the first club that you actually purchased, you said that you saw the potential.
Yep.
What was the potential you saw when it had 1,750 members?
Okay. Yeah. I actually I got attracted to the gym as a potential investment because when I came back from Dunedin to Christchurch, I pined for my YMCA and I pined for my 2 personal trainers. And I nearly fell off the rails, to be fair, in terms of my training. And so I hadn't joined a gym. I was still travelling a lot with my job, and so I was paying casual visits. And I was going to all of the different gyms, and I couldn't get comfortable with any of the ones that I was at. And that made me start to think, well, I need to find I don't want to work in the bank forever. I want to stay in Christchurch. And I started to think, well, maybe there's a business opportunity. And Pro Fitness was a large facility, and I could just see that it had the potential to be improved. And in terms of equipment, in terms of service, in terms of professionalism, and I loved the location. In terms of setting up a location with that level of undercover car parking, easily accessible, it just felt right. But it wasn't. It was more came from the point that I need to find a future for myself. It's not banking. I do want to own my own business. I love fitness and what it's done for me, but I don't really. I'm not enjoying where I'm training. So rather than complain about it, why don't I potentially do something about it? Yeah, so it stemmed from that. Okay, so it was a long journey from 1997 to about 2002, where we achieved a certain degree of success. And that was when I came to a crossroad and someone one day, sorry I didn't share those with you, but I'll go past those, about personal values. I didn't know where I was and where I was going, and a good friend of mine who's an industrial psychologist said, well, let's spend some time trying to identify what your personal values are. And I'm sort of going, well, what do you mean by trying to identify what my personal values are? And he said to me that by identifying your personal values, you'll understand how you're wired and what it is you want for yourself in your life. And then once you understand what it is you want for yourself, then you can start to plan for your future, because you might find at this particular point in time you have a set of values that aren't being fulfilled, that there is some missing things in terms of fulfilling you on a day-to-day basis, and that's why you're feeling like you're at a crossroads and therefore you need to make some changes. So rather than the traditional approach, which was to focus on the vision of Pro Fitness and the mission of Pro Fitness and why I needed to potentially change that in order to reignite the fire, so to speak, and then work my way down into the strategies that I needed to implement to make that happen, he said, why don't we start right at the bottom of the pyramid? Why don't we start on the foundation of the house and try and identify what are your personal values? Because if you can identify what your personal values are, it's really important that you're being fulfilled down at this particular level. Because if you can be fulfilled down at this particular level, you can then start to plan the rest of your life above that. And I said, well, hey, that's a pretty cool idea, because my natural tendency was to focus on the vision of Pro Fitness, to focus on the mission of Pro Fitness and why I was feeling the way I was feeling. Did I need to change the organisation? Which wasn't the right thing to do. And so we spent a lot of time with him trying to identify what my personal values were. And that, to be fair, was quite a scary experience, and B, quite an enlightening experience. In that I had to stop, step back and take a real look at myself and ask myself the questions about what's important to me. Why do I do what I do? What do I want out of what I do? What is driving me to do what it is that I do? And the more I started to understand and go through that process, the more I started to understand what I needed to do further up the pyramid. And so then it allowed, from that particular point, once I identified what my personal values were, I could then try and identify a series of business values that were going to try and get alignment and then help my business be successful. So what we're going to do tonight is start off by getting you guys to do your personal values. Okay. Who knows what values are? Anyone got an insight on what values are? Yep, fantastic. That's a great answer. Yep. A series of beliefs. Where do those beliefs potentially come from? Sorry? Our family, the upbringing, yeah, absolutely.
Circle of influence.
Circle of influence, yep, absolutely.
Experiences.
Experiences, life experiences, yep. All of those sorts of things. The reality is most of us don't actually know what their personal values are. Who in this room could confidently say, I understand and know what my personal values are? Could anyone do that? Don't be surprised by that, because the reality is most of us have never even thought about it, let alone ever done an exercise to identify what the values actually are. And if we do suddenly identify what those values are, then we can make decisions based on those values. We can make choices to go down path A or path B based on those values, and they can determine the decisions that we make on a day-to-day basis. Okay. So what I'm going to do is hand out a form, which I'd like you to work around the table. We'll take one and pass it on. There are 4 columns on the form. which deal with personal values, intrinsic values, which is your personal values, work values, environment values, and work content values. We're actually going to focus on this column here alone, the very first column. Okay. What I'd like you to do as a starting point is look at all the words down on that left-hand column when you get your sheet. They are a series of words that relate to personal values. It's not a totally exclusive list. There may be certain other words that you've got going in your head that represent a value, but there are the majority of the values that people hold in their personal life are represented there. What I'd like you to do is to look through those words and put a circle around any of the words that excite you, that make you feel, yes, I really relate to that word. That's a word or a feeling or an emotion or a way of thinking or acting or your being that is actually important to you. It doesn't matter whether you circle every single one. It doesn't matter if you only circle 3 or 4. But if you just work your way down the column and put a circle around each of the words that you connect with. Sorry. How are we going? Has everyone completed that? Okay. Just to give me an idea, who's got more than 10 circled? Fantastic. Awesome. Who's got more than, between 5 and 10 circled? Fantastic. Who's got less than 5? That's okay. So in going through that process, you selected words because they jumped off the page at you and they connected with you in some way. Would that be right? Okay. What I'd like you to do now is down the left-hand column, in the little boxes to the left of those words that you've circled, pick out the top 5 and rank them from 1 to 5, just so we've now got them circled, for example, like we've got shown on the screen here. And now you're going to go through and put a ranking of just a representation there of your top 5, 1 being the word that connects with you the most, that gives you the goosebumps, down to number 5 on that list. Take your time, it's quite important. Okay, how are we going? All done? Okay. Let's pick out a word like honesty. Who's got honesty circled? Okay, it's a very, very common word. And that's fantastic. The interesting thing about values, and if we look at beliefs and values, which is what they are, and we look at the word honesty. What I like those people who, in fact, everyone will do this exercise because most of you had the word honesty down. I'd like you to write a reasonably brief definition, your definition of honesty. Could be maybe 10, no more than 10 or 12 words. Define honesty and what honesty means to you and the way you would articulate honesty as a value that you hold as important to you. How would you describe it, and how would you want to live that value? I'm going to ask about 5 of you to share your definition. Who would like to start? And what we should understand is when you just, it's your value. It's your definition. It's not right and it's not wrong because it's yours. It's your way of defining the word. No, it's not a case of whether yours is right and someone else is wrong. Yep.
Doing the right thing when no one's around.
Doing the right thing when no one's around. Fantastic. What a great definition. Yep.
Being truthful with yourself and with others.
Fantastic. That's a great one. Awesome. Who else?
Not having anything to hide from yourself or others.
It's just a wee bit louder for everyone.
Not having anything to hide from yourself or from others.
Fantastic. That's 3. Awesome. Anyone else? Got 2 more to go. Don't be shy.
Mine's very similar to Blake's. It just means to live within yourself and to others transparently, as in no hidden agendas.
Awesome. Okay, fantastic. One more.
Always do what you're saying you're going to do.
Always doing what you're saying you're going to do. Fantastic. So what we heard there was 5 fantastic definitions, but what did you notice about those 5 definitions? They're all different, but they're all similar, but they're all different. And that's the interesting thing about values. The word honesty, and if we actually look at different definitions of the word honesty up here, we've got people being honest with me being honest with other people being honest with me, and me being honest with other people, being direct and candid despite the possible consequences, demonstrating integrity and being loyal to those closest to me, living in a way that aligns with my values. Now they're all valid definitions of the word honesty, and the person who put that definition on that value, if they were to live that value, then they're going to feel fulfilled. But if they expected to live to someone else's definition, do you think that they would feel fulfilled around that? Okay. So the interesting thing about values, we can all have very similar values in terms of the word that we actually use, but the way in which we articulate it and the way in which we describe it can be very, very different, and that's where the power lies in values. So the important thing is to actually, next step is to go through and develop definitions for each of those values from 1 to 5. Now I'm not going to ask you to do all 5 because this is something I really want to encourage you to spend a lot of time and a lot of thought doing. So at the end of the day, not end of this day, at some time within the next few days, you will have 5 fantastic definitions of your top 5 values. But what I'd like you to do is to come up and think really carefully about your number 1 value and your number 2 value, which could be success, achievement, balance, happiness, fun, whatever it is. Come up with a definition that describes that value in such a way that makes you get all excited about it. Okay? Just your first 2. Another couple of minutes just to finish that off, the top two. So has everyone managed to get the definition of their top two? I'd really love it if someone would be prepared to share some of their definitions of their number one value. Excuse me. Who would like to do that? Fantastic.
I had my number one value as passion, and I suppose the best way for me to describe it is by an example. I remember reading somewhere or listening to something, and it was about Michelangelo painting the roof of the chapel, and he didn't know whether it was 4 o'clock in the morning or 11 o'clock at night, but that was his passion, and it didn't make any difference to him. And I suppose that's what it is, using your gift or doing what you were born to do, or sort of leave a memorable footprint.
So you don't know where you are or what time it is or what you're doing because you're so passionate about it.
Yeah, it's a life's work.
Yep, fantastic, awesome. Yep, that's great. Another one?
I had achievement,
Achievement.
and it was doing something that forces others to recognise me as a winner.
Awesome. Fantastic. What a great definition. Yep. Some more? Don't be shy.
I actually had self-respect as my number one.
Fantastic.
Just treating yourself and loving yourself enough so you can give yourself always to others.
Awesome. Fantastic. Yep. Some others?
Integrity.
Yeah.
I'm always truthful and thoughtful to others with word and action.
Fantastic. What a great value. Awesome. Yep.
Integrity as well. Similar to Susan's honesty, doing what you're saying and do when no one's around.
Yep. Fantastic. Okay. So just imagine if you took those 5 top values of yours and you developed those meanings in such a way that you memorised them. You knew exactly what the value was, and you knew exactly what the definition of that value was to you. So that every decision that you came to in life, every situation you're faced with, you can fall back on your values and say, it's really, really important to me that I make the decision or the choice based on fulfilment of those 5 values, particularly the number 1 value and the number 2 value. Why would I choose to do A and not fulfill my values when I could choose to do B, which will make me feel good about myself, because I know that if I live my life according to my values and the way I define them, then I'm going to feel fulfilled. And it's like a bucket of energy. If you think of a bucket of energy like that and you have value fulfillment, the bucket becomes full. But if you make decisions or do things or put yourselves in situations where you compromise those values, you drain the energy out of your energy bucket. So if you have a series of values that you live your life by and you understand what those values are and what they mean to you, then you're able to make really, really powerful decisions on a day-to-day basis, from the tiniest little things in your life all the way up to the really, really big things about what sort of business do I want to be in and what sort of business do I want to be, that business that I'm in to be. How do I want that business to be seen by the outside world, to perform on a day-to-day basis? Will that make everyone else's values feel fulfilled, but will it make me feel fulfilled? You have to be true to yourself, not just true to what you think the right thing to do in a particular business setting is, because otherwise you can find yourself being unfulfilled because you are having events or situations or circumstances that are draining the energy away from you because you're not fulfilling those values. Can anyone relate to their personal situations and feeling at times where they felt drained and not on top of things? Anyone want to share a situation in context of values and perhaps that they weren't fulfilling some of the really important values in their lives? Anybody? Yeah?
I had one today, actually.
Okay.
We were going to PT session over in the park.
Yep.
And I needed to go to the loo.
Yep.
And everyone else had gone, so the brief was to be quick.
Right.
And there was a lady going into the toilets with a baby in a pram, and I was going to help her into the one that I was going to, and she said, "Oh no, I'm going to go down to this end because it's bigger."
Yeah.
And I had the time to do that, and then I'm thinking, I'm supposed to be there. I want to be here, and
Yeah.
in my head it was going, quick, be quick.
Yeah.
And so I went, and then I thought, no, I should have stayed.
Stayed and
Opened the door.
opened the door for her.
And
Because
spent time.
and the value that you were feeling you were compromising was
Being there for other people.
being there for other people.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But I had this in my head, be quick, be quick.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's pressures coming on from external sources, potentially in this setting, your education at the Max International College, could be your career, but suddenly you're being forced down a particular path which is going to compromise your personal values. If you live your life like that, what's the end result going to be? Are you going to be happy, or are you going to unhappy? You're going to be very unhappy. And because we don't, generally speaking, even know what our values are, let alone able to articulate what they mean, generally, a lot of time we go through our life feeling not quite sure why we feel the way we feel. But primarily it's because we're not feeling fulfilled about the most important things in our life, our personal values.
Excuse me, to say, I would have felt much better if I hadn't stayed.
Fantastic. That's a great example. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Can anyone else share an example where they've made decisions to do things that in hindsight has compromised their values? I saw a smirk from there, but yeah.
I'm having to go to work today instead of spending the day with the children.
Right. Okay, and the value you're compromising there is family? Family. Yeah. So it's a situation where family is an important value to you, and understandably so. And the way you articulate that value then may mean that spending time with them and being there for them is really important, but then going to work compromises that value. Now, work is an essential part of life if you use work in a loose term. So it's then a case of then having to identify strategies in order to ensure that you can keep putting energy into the bucket and stop the draining out the other end, and other strategies we have in life to manage those sorts of things or to balance it out in order to ensure that we are, because we all live in a real world, we want to achieve value fulfillment, but not at the expense of family, if that's one of your key values. Okay. So there's some of the strategies that you could develop. Let's say, for example, one of your key values was balance. Recognition, which is a really interesting one. And you were working in an environment where you didn't get much recognition. But recognition was an important value to you. And being told that you were doing a good job was important to you. Okay. If you were working in an environment where you weren't getting the recognition that you felt you deserved, what could you do? Mm-hmm. That's one strategy. You actually like the environment, it's just that you don't feel you're getting the recognition that you'd like. Speak to the manager. Fantastic. So, and agree some way of getting some mechanisms in place to get the work that you're doing that recognised. Another situation where there was a young lawyer working in a law firm, and this was in Christchurch, a traditional state law firm with 5 male partners. And she was an associate and working really hard and doing some fantastic things for the law practice. But it was always going to be an uphill climb to become the first female partner in this all-male firm. And these male lawyers, being the traditional male lawyers, weren't very good at giving recognition or praise to their team. And she was starting, on the one hand, she was doing work that she really, really loved. She was working with some fantastic clients and learning an awful lot, but she was feeling not too flash about things. And it wasn't until she realised that one of her key values was recognition, and she was getting no recognition from the partners, that there was a problem. And then one day a client who was very appreciative of the work that she did sent her a bunch of flowers and said, "Thank you very much for the job that you did." And suddenly she felt up again, because she got the recognition, but she got the recognition from her customers rather than actually getting it from the partners. And what the strategy in that situation that she developed for herself was that she developed a feedback form that she sent back out to every single customer after every single job that she did. She wasn't going to get a bunch of flowers every single time, but what she did is she spent a lot of time getting the feedback form done really, really well, and she sent these feedback forms out, and most of the clients would send them back and she'd get feedback which was a form of recognition. So she could continue in the environment that she actually, and doing the work that she actually liked. No doubt she might have had other strategies to work on the partners to help them to recognise her a little bit more, but she used an experience that she'd had to create an opportunity to get recognition in a different way. And suddenly her outlook on that opportunity to move through the partnership in that firm changed, and she felt a whole lot better. Okay. So if you know what your values are, and you know how to define them and what they mean to you, and if you're not feeling fulfilled around them, then develop some strategies on how you can get them fulfilled, and they can be as simple as that example that I just gave you. There's a study done that the discretionary effort has a huge impact, and discretionary effort is driven around fulfillment of values. So if you relate the outcome of the study to you working in your business or your employees working for you in your business. Okay? The study showed of a survey of 25,000 employees in 14 organisations that where personal fulfilment could be demonstrated in those employees, there was a 39% increase in performance. And that's around discretionary performance. So if you're feeling fulfilled in your own life, do you perform at a higher level? If you're feeling fulfilled, do you perform at a higher level because you want to and you're driven to? And the same will apply for the employees that you have in your organisation. That if you can get your employees feeling fulfilled in what they're doing and having their values being fulfilled, that they will give you more because they choose to do so, and that's the discretionary effort. And when we introduced values at Pro Fitness, not only did it change my outlook, and I identified what my values were and how the organisation needed to change in order to ensure it could fulfil my values, every single one of our employees knows what their values are. Every single one of our team players knows what their values are. Different lingo that we use at Pro Fitness to what we use at Max. And then we can sit down with them and we can talk about not only fulfilment of the business values, but we can also talk to them about, are you feeling fulfilled in your personal values? I know that your number one value, like you're talking to a team player, is balance. Are you feeling balanced in your life at the moment? Family is important to you. Are you feeling that that value is being fulfilled at this particular point in time? So we can take an interest in whether they are being fulfilled. Now, if I can ask a team player those questions, I can also ask myself those questions. If I don't bounce out of bed at 6 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning or whatever time it is, I need to ask myself why. Which of my values is being compromised at this particular point in time? Which one am I not feeling fulfilled around? Okay.
Would you go back and revisit those with your team once a year, something like that? Because I know things can change in time.
Absolutely. Yep.
Change in priority, and so
it is an evolving thing, absolutely. Just like organisational values change in line with the change of the organisation, individuals' values change, yeah? And we do it every year as part of our performance evaluation process, yeah. And re-look at them, say, are they still relevant? And we go through this exercise on an ongoing basis. And they do change, but generally speaking, the core ones remain. You know, if you're a success-driven person, that's always going to be there. Family's important to you, it's always going to be there, but they can change. Or the definitions that you place around them change because you get older, your circumstances might change. Yep, it's a great point, though.
Steve, when you did your personal values with your staff,
yep.
Did any leave?
It's interesting that we had a number of team players that had identified that their values weren't being fulfilled, and that then and often that correlated with their performance because the discretionary effort wasn't there. And then it's a case of sitting down and saying, well, now we've identified your personal values, and we're going to talk about business values next. How do we get more fulfillment of both? Because if you have an employee who is not fulfilling their personal values, almost certainly, well, not almost, generally they won't be fulfilling the organisation's values either. Did we have anyone specifically leave? I don't believe so. We had it helped some people turn some corners, and and produced a couple of stars for us, to be fair, but I'm not sure we had anyone leave as a result. We've had people leave since then, that's for
So
sure.
you opened yourself up to a type of counselling with them?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't like to think of as counselling, but yeah.
I don't know what the right word
Yeah,
would
yeah,
be, but
absolutely, yeah. And for when I did it myself, you know, and if you do sit down and you go through this process and you do give it a lot of thought, it's amazing what comes out. You start to realise, I didn't realise that that's what I thought, and mine was done for me by an industrial psychologist who really got inside my head and started, you know, and really pulled the stuff out of me, and it was quite hard. But once it was out there, I'm looking at this and going, I actually felt quite, you know, really, really drained. But it was a big corner for me to turn. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so once you've identified the personal values, it's time to move on to the business's values. Because if we go back to remember at the pyramid, the business values were directly above the personal values. They're the next level of the foundation. And again, it's like a bucket of energy. If we can identify personal fulfilment and then add business fulfilment into that bucket of energy, then, you know, the world's our oyster. Anything can be achieved. Okay. Jump ahead. So if you look at some great organisations, we have Microsoft. Their values are... Actually, I'll hand these around now. I didn't want to hand them out before now because you'd start looking at them all. Pass those down. You might be able to see them better. But Microsoft's values are integrity and honesty, passion for customers, for our partners and for technology, openness and respectfulness, taking on big challenges and seeing them through, constructive self-criticism, self-improvement and personal excellence, accountability to customers, shareholders, partners and employees for commitments and results. Then you've got the Coca-Cola Company and Vodafone. And I'll now share Pro Fitness's values with you, which was, in the process for identifying Pro Fitness's business values, was I shared with my whole team my personal values, for which some of them were a little bit gobsmacked, to be fair. They thought, that's not you. I said, well, that is me. I was a little bit surprised myself, actually, but that is me. And I said, this is as a consequence of my personal values, this is the vision and the mission that I have for Pro Fitness. I want you guys, as the people that make the organisation what it is, not me, to come up with the business values for Pro Fitness. Here are my values. This is what I want Pro Fitness to be in terms of a vision. This is the things I want us to achieve. You guys come up with the values. And this is what they came up with as a team. It's about a 3-month process. The first value is inner strength. Strength to do the right thing and courage to challenge those that don't. Strength to support others, the team and the brand. Fresh and energetic. Innovation and creativity to provide the energy to remain leading edge. Personal leadership. Ownership of the way we do business and an unwavering commitment to continuous improvement. Commitment to results. A do what it takes attitude and staunch to the cause. Reward success is the shared commitment to recognise achievement and reward success. And growth and impact is to strive for personal and business growth and to improve people's lives. I had absolutely nothing to do with those development of those values. They came from the team, but they came from the team because they understood their own personal values. They'd been through that process. They understood what we wanted to achieve as an organisation, and they came together and came up with these values. And now that drives every single decision that we make at Pro Fitness. Everything that we do on a day-to-day basis is driven by our values, because they essentially become like the DNA of the organisation.
So they don't change at all?
There's a review process that goes, and they're due for another team meeting to go through them, and they will evolve. Absolutely, yeah. But the same process will apply. We'll say, you know, I'll re-examine my values, re-examine the vision and the mission, and then hand it back over and say, guys, are our business values right for where we are at this particular point in time? And that's due to happen reasonably soon. Yeah. So the power of business values. Sorry, that's had a whack. The values are the organisation's real leader. I'm not the leader. Moana, who's now the general manager, is not the leader. The values of the leader. Because if someone comes to me and says, "Will you approve this?" I'll say, "Sure. Tell me, is it in alignment with our business values?" If you look at our business values, is that the right thing for us to do? And if it's the right thing for us to do, the answer will be yes. If it doesn't line up with one of our business values, I'll say, well, clearly it's not the right thing for us to do, so the answer is, or I don't even say the answer is no. I say, what do you think the answer is? And they'll say, no, that's right, because it's not going to fulfill our business values. So they become the DNA. They determine what happens and how it happens and when it happens. And decisions are based on values. Organisations don't put their values into place, people do. You put your own values into practice. No one else is going to take your 5 values, write the definitions for you and put them into practice in your life. That'll be done by you. And values alignment drives performance. So, this last point is probably one of the most significant. If you have unprioritised values, they create conflict. If your business values and your personal values are in conflict, what's going to happen in your life? You're going to have a successful business? No. You're going to have a successful personal life? Absolutely not. Okay. So we go back to the picture again at the start. We start here, identify what your personal values are. And all of you guys are either about to go and set up your own personal training business, running PT businesses, running gyms, about to run gyms. Understand what your personal values are as part of that process. And then once you understand what your personal values are, sit back and think about the vision that you have for your business. What do you want it to achieve, which is the mission? And then develop the business values that are going to allow you to achieve it. But the foundation is built around you and your fulfillment. If we look at this graph, which is the most important one of the lot, and it's the one I use an awful lot with our team. On this axis we have our personal values, and on this axis we have our business values. In this bottom left-hand box, we have low personal fulfillment and low business fulfillment. If you asked yourself which box are you in, and you said you were in that box, what is that telling you? Not good, is it? I'm feeling personally poor, yuck, and my business, and I'm not fulfilling the business's value either. So the business is not going to be successful, and I'm not going to be successful. So something needs to change. You need to develop some strategies to push you along the graph on the bottom to start fulfilling the business values, and you need to start developing some strategies to push you up on the personal values. When we've done this with some of our team players and they're in this box, what do you think the outcome might be?
Massive change.
Massive change, and some of them can't cope. So that's when we say it's, you're not being fulfilled and you're not fulfilling us. It's time for you to look for a new opportunity, change your career. You're in the wrong career. Okay. Alternatively, if you're up in this box, you've got really high personal fulfillment, but you've got low business fulfillment. And it could be your own business, don't forget. You're feeling personally, you're having a great old time, but your business values aren't being fulfilled. What's that telling you? You're having too much fun. All your personal values are being fulfilled, but the business that you set about trying to build and make successful, you're not fulfilling the values of the business. Or you've got people on your team who are having a great old time, but they're not helping you to be successful in your business, so you want them to start moving that way. We need to develop some strategies to get you fulfilling the business values a little bit more. Okay. If they don't, thus take that, and if you don't, then you're not going to be as successful as you otherwise could be. If you were down in this box, what's happening? Bottom right hand box.
All about business.
It's all about the business. The business is being really, really successful, but you're not enjoying yourself. or you've got a team, someone on your team who's been really, really successful, making a huge contribution to your organisation, but they are not being personally fulfilled. What's going to be the end result of that? Do you think?
They're not going to be happy.
They're not going to be happy, and ultimately they would potentially leave the organisation if you don't identify it and say, well, you're doing such a fantastic job for you, but I realise your personal values are not being fulfilled because I know what they are. Let's talk about that. Let's find some strategies to help you feel more fulfilled personally. Okay. And the ultimate place to be is over here, because then either you or your team players are in a situation where not only are they feeling fulfilled personally, and in being fulfilled personally, they're fulfilling the organisation's values. Not forgetting that those values might be, you might be both people. Do you understand that? You could be, this is your personal life and this is your business life. So you can look at this picture, you are this one person, or it could be, you could be the business, and one of your team players could be the person, the individual. Okay, so it's a diagram you can apply to you and yourself, or to the team within your organisation. If you can get your whole team into this box, you're really going to kick some seriously big goals. Okay. To do that, you need to be able to identify what their values are, and go through a process of identifying fulfilment or otherwise. So what I'd like you to do now is go back to your numbers. And in the right-hand column, to the right-hand side of or left-hand, depending on which column you put the numbers in. Oops. Sorry. Did you put your ratings in the left-hand column? Yeah. In the right-hand column, I'd like you to rate your top 5 values on a fulfilment scale of 1 to 10. So hypothetically, your value number 1 was success, hypothetically. 1 would mean that you are very, very unfulfilled at this particular point in time, and 10 is you are totally fulfilled. So I'd like you to rate your top 5 in terms of fulfillment. Okay. Does everyone manage that? Anyone like to share? Who's got some 10s? That's awesome. Here, what's your 10?
Passion.
Passion. Fantastic. Awesome. No?
Integrity and self-respect.
Awesome. Okay. Who's got some numbers down the other end? Not that we want to single anyone out, but the fact that you're not feeling fulfilled about a value is okay. You can perhaps maybe talk a little bit about some strategies to help you. Who's got a 3 or a 4 besides something? Anyone? You happy to share it? Yep.
Just with success.
Success?
At the moment.
Yep. Okay. Okay, so your definition of success, do you mind me asking what your definition of success was?
Just be happy in what I'm doing.
Happy in what you're doing.
But being able to provide for family and myself.
Okay, so are you going through a change at the moment from one career to a new career? Okay, so is that part of the strategy that you've developed to change it from a 4? So you're confident that when you finish the course you're going to be a program, you're going to be a successful?
Yeah.
So, yep. So whereabouts are you in the program at the moment?
Oh, just on the week 3.
Week 3. So in 6 weeks' time, 7 weeks' time, you're going to be out there rock and rolling. Your goal is to have that up at a... What is your goal to have that number to? 12. Okay, fantastic. There's a great example where someone's changed a career because their value's not being fulfilled. Their rating is a 3. They've made a big change in your life. At this point in time, it's 3 or 4. But if you achieve what you're setting out to achieve, you're going to change it from a 3 or 4 into a 12, which is great on a scale of 1 to 10. So, but, okay. Anyone else? Who's got a number down there they'd like to share? Okay.
I had a 3 for independence.
Okay, fantastic. Do you mind sharing?
Just going through the course and that. So obviously I'm not working at the moment. I'm not very independent financially or anything like that. So.
Okay, so what could be a strategy? Let's talk about some strategies to try and help you deal with that so you don't feel that it's not being fulfilled. Anyone got any ideas?
Work nights.
I mean, that is a strategy. Whether it's a viable strategy for you is a different kettle of fish. How did you define independence?
That was actually number 4.
Number 4?
Right definition. But I'd probably say not having to rely heavily on others.
Okay. So it's a case then of trying to focus in on your definition of what strategy you might be able to develop, and it doesn't necessarily be monetary dependence, it might be time dependence, it might be doing some things that makes you feel more independent. The reality is that if you don't have an income at a particular point in time, you can't necessarily change that very easily, but look for other ways to create some feeling of independence by doing some other things or making some small changes. Because sometimes the changes need to be very, very big, but sometimes they can be quite small. You know, someone who's suffering from a lack of balance, they don't feel, and their definition of balance is having time just for me, where it's just all about me for an hour a day. Well, it might be that all you've got to do is say, I'm going to read a book, or I'm going to go for a walk on my own for an hour a day with my iPod on. Now that may be quite a dramatic change in that person's life, but it's also quite a small change because they've never been walking for an hour with an iPod on, but they suddenly do it, and then the whole life changes because they're suddenly more relaxed, they feel a little bit more balanced, they've had their own time. So the strategies can be small, but they can also be dramatic, like a career change. Yep. Interesting. Okay, well, we'll finish for the session at this particular point for a coffee. Is that the normal routine? Yep. And then we'll come back afterwards and we're going to focus on the 5 P's of success. So I'm going to try and relate back as much as I can to values, because in my view, values, personal values and business values underlie all of those things. Certainly they do in the business of Pro Fitness. Thanks, guys. Okay. Before we get back into it, we're going to have a bit of fun. Have you guys done a jump quiz before?
Yeah.
Okay. So just because these are New Zealand rules, and in New Zealand we do things differently, so you need to push your chairs back, obviously, just so. There's 100 points for the correct answer for each one, and whoever's got the most points at the end of it is either going to win Roy's Be Happy book, or if you haven't got one of those books, they're going to win a book called Who Moved My Cheese, which I'll actually go out and buy tomorrow and get delivered to you. It's Who's Read Who Moved My Cheese. It's one of my favourite books. It's a really, really easy read, but it's all about change and how important change is in our life. So this is called the visual puns. So when you see the picture come up, you've got a first person to their feet gets to answer what the visual pun is. And once you've seen the first one, you'll get the gist of it. 100 points on. You can't shout it out. 100 points off if you jump up and give me the wrong answer. Okay. I'll give you plenty of clues so we can get through them all. There we go. First one. Fantastic, 100 points. Awesome. Well done. Okay, get the gist of it? Okay. Next one. The clue, the answer's in the flower. If I tell you that, you know the answer.
Dandelion?
Fantastic, you're right. 200 points, come on, I've got to crank it up a bit. Okay, next one. It's a type of peanut that's been subject to a criminal activity. Oh, 100 off. Thank you.
Salted nut.
Give you a salted peanut.
Oh,
yeah. An assaulted peanut. Okay. Next one. Clue. It's a wee bit crass, but not too bad. Pamela Anderson.
Oh, Mammoth Cups.
We'll give you the 100. Not
Oh,
quite.
sorry, I didn't stand up.
No, that's all right. It's not quite covered, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. Then we'll change. Okay, so we've got 200 there. Okay, next one.
Eggplant.
Fantastic, 100 points. Well done. Good job. Here we go. Okay, 100-point clue. It's an American soft drink. Dr. Pepper, 100 points. Well done. So everyone's keeping their points. Don't forget to keep recording your points because the winner obviously gets the book. Next one. Hopefully you can see that.
Full table?
Fantastic. Great answer. Well done. It's a full table. Cool. We've got a lot of people on the board. How are we going here?
What's that down the bottom?
The answer's in the top bat, not the bottom bat.
Baseball bat.
Baseball bat. You might not be able to see it from the back, but that's a baseball. Well done. 100 points. Good job. Rocking through them. Next one. Well done. 100 points. That's a card shark. Well done. Got a lot of people in the game, which is good.
Tap dancing. Tap dancing.
Tap dancing. Tap dancers. Well done. We've got 300 points here. Who's next? Who's got 200? We've got 200 there. Is that right? No? 200? One. Okay. Here we go.
King of Pop.
Well done. Great answer. Well done. Okay. Got about 3 to go, so you're still in the game. You're still in the game.
Is it an iPod?
Oh, great answer. An iPod. Yeah. Well done. Clue.
Nighthead?
90.
Nighthead?
Nighthead.
Nighthead?
No. 100 off, sorry.
Knight Rider?
Oh, no. Clue. Dream. Dream.
Nightmare?
Yeah, well done. Actually got a lot of people in the game. Right, I think actually might have been more than a couple to go. Here we go, getting towards the end. Any clues? God, I've got brain fade. Terrible, isn't it? I've seen these 400 times and I can't remember what it is myself. Hey? That's terrible, isn't it? That's it. Okay. Brain fade. Sports drink. We're here at the front. Yep, Gatorade. Okay, last one. Whole milk. Well done, Ray. Okay, so I think we had a winner though with what, 400? 400. Yes. Hold on. Congratulations. So did we? No? Okay, so I'm going to go tomorrow and get you who moved my cheese, so I'll get your contact details afterwards. How does that sound? Well done, congratulations. Okay, let's change that PowerPoint. Righty, so I'm going to move on to the first P of planning. Because it all starts with planning to fail. To plan is to plan to fail. And obviously, because we spend a lot of time talking about personal values, in my view, the whole planning process starts with your personal values and spending a lot of time taking what you've got at the moment, which is a bit of a skeleton, and really putting some flesh onto it and putting some real meaning around it. The next step in your business planning process is to develop a vision for your business. What is it that you want your business to be? Who knows what the vision for the Max International College for Fitness Professionals is?
Change the health and fitness of the world.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Congratulations. So the people behind Max have come up with that as the vision. And under that lies a series of missions which are about making that vision a reality. And then underpinning that is the business values. And on the PowerPoints that I handed out, you can see Vodafone's and Microsoft and Coca-Cola's values, and I shared Pro Fitness's business values. But what are the business values that drive achievement of that series of missions and achievement of that vision? And that's something that you alone could do, but I would strongly encourage, if you are it and you are a one-man business, then you are clearly it. But if you've got a team of people, engage your team in the process, because that makes it all the more powerful. Okay. A lot of time spent here, the more time spent here is setting yourself up for success rather than charging off and doing a lot of other things that we traditionally do in the business planning process, which is focused a lot around what sort of things do you think? Sorry? Money type stuff? Yeah. What else?
More money.
More money? Yeah, where you're going to be, what it's going to look like, what you're going to dress like, what you're going to buy, what you're going to put in there, all that stuff, which is all important. But at the end of the day, why are you doing it? How's it going to help you feel personally fulfilled? And how is it actually, and what is the vision that you have, and what is the mission, and what are the business values that are going to allow you to achieve that? Okay. And once you've got through that and you've invested the time, and that is an inclusive process, not an exclusive process. Who might you involve in that other than your team? Or if it's obviously you, who else might you involve other than your team in that process? Your mentor? Fantastic, yep. Other people in your business mastermind group, the people that are helping you to be successful. People who've got a stake in some shape or form in making you successful. You may, even the most advanced organisations, also involve some of their clients, some of their customers. You know, that's a really brave step to take, but to involve them in the process can be valuable. It's an evolutionary process, and I think it's not something that you do once. Values do change, and it's a really, really good point that was made. But the planning process is something that you don't just do once when you start your business and then park it away and never look at again. And that would probably, a high percentage of businesses never do any planning at all. And then those that do some planning often do it once, and then that's the end of it. Rather than saying, planning is an ongoing process, it's something I invest some time in regularly, not just even once a year. The business plan is a living, breathing document. That's something that I use as the guide. Okay. Your vision will evolve. Your mission will evolve, because what is also evolving? Your values, your personal values are evolving, because you are changing and growing as a person. So what's important to you today may not be as important to you tomorrow, because things in your life change, and therefore your business needs to change with you. Otherwise, what's going to happen? What's going to happen to the bucket of energy? It's going to be drained. Yep, fantastic. And the entire business needs to be contemplated when we talk about the business planning process. When I talk about the entire business, let's talk about some of the elements of a business. We talk about the financial elements of the business. What else have we got? Product. Yep, and I've got a really interesting clip to show you about product. Marketing. Fantastic. Service, customer service. Yep. Human resources. Yep. What else? Outcome. So being your goals.
Well, you might say that you've got a good product.
Yep.
But it's making sure that what you say you have is what you deliver or what you give your customers.
Yep.
Outcomes.
Outcomes. Yep. Fantastic. What other sorts of parts might form part of a business plan?
Sales.
Sales. Brilliant. What's sort of an adjunct of marketing, but it's all sort of linked in together? Begins with B.
Budget.
No.
Branding.
Branding. Yeah. Branding, marketing. They're different, but they obviously they do go together. What about? Sorry. No. What about things like business continuity? You know what I mean by business continuity? Continuity planning? Does anyone know what that is? The what if scenario. What if the building burns down? Disaster planning. Yeah, because at the end of the day, things happen. What happens if I get sick? Who's going to run it? What happens if there's an earthquake? All those sorts of things. Yeah. There's a tidal wave comes in off the Pacific. Floods everything. Business continuity. What other parts of a plan might be quite important?
Succession planning.
Succession planning, yep, which can form part of business continuity or part of human resources. So you can see it's not just about where you're going to be and how many clients you're going to have in the dollars and cents, but that's where we tend to go straight in and focus. Okay. What I hope to do at a later session, because there's a lot more detail, is come back and talk a lot more about each of the P's in a lot more depth. I just want to touch on them tonight to give you a bit of a flavour and how we wrap them up inside values. Needs to be clearly documented. If we went out into the industry and took a sample of 100 personal trainers and asked to see their business plans, what do you think the outcome would be? Fascinating. How many business plans do you think we would end up with out of that 100, that random sample of 100 personal trainers? Did someone say 5%? Yep. I would think that's pretty accurate because I'm not sure what the Australian statistic is, but the New Zealand statistic is that over 95% of small businesses fail. And over 95% of the small business, or not over 95%, the majority of those businesses never had a business plan to start with of any shape or form, and that's really sad. We have a lot of things going on in our head about what we want our business to be, but we never take it out of our head and capture it into a document that we can share, that we can use as a tool to attract people, to train people, to develop people, and to grow the business, and to hand over to those people that are going to succeed us and make it successful. It's going to be shared. It's all well and good having it in here, and even if you get it down onto a bit of paper where it's all yours, you then have to share it with the people that are going to make it live and breathe, and the people around you, such as your business mentor, the other members of your business mastermind group. To have a plan that you've invested a huge amount of time and effort in and not to share it with the people that are going to implement it doesn't make a lot of sense. Our business plan, or the Pro Fitness business plan, it's a document that the whole team can see. There's a couple of things we take out of it because there are a couple of things that are detailed around what the shareholders might do and with certain financial information, but the rest of it is available for everyone to see. There's nothing that you should have in a business plan that you're not prepared to share with the team, because they're the ones really that have to make it work and on a day-to-day basis. Important. So that's the first P, planning, driven and underlined by our personal values. We then move to the second P, which is positioning, which is a term that I like to link to our brand. Where do you want you to position yourself in the marketplace, and what is your brand? And brand is a really interesting concept. It's what and who do you want to be? What do you remember of the Pro Fitness brand? What did we show you? Any shape or size? Yep. Okay, so where do you want to position yourself? What is your brand value? What are some of the most successful brands in the world? Let's pull some. Coke? Yep. And why are they successful?
Very well branded.
Their marketing ability.
Yep. Because they... Sorry, what was that?
They're very well branded.
They're very well branded, yeah. But what has happened over a long period of time is they've produced a quality product, and they've been very clear on who they are and what they want to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they've been true to themselves from beginning to the end. They've certainly evolved. If you go back and look at the evolution of Coca-Cola as a brand, there's that common theme running through it, but it has definitely evolved. But they've always been true to what they are, and that is to produce a fairly basic product with obviously quite a unique formula, because no one else has been able to really copy it successfully. And that really goes into a little bit about single-mindedness towards the brand. You need to have a single-minded focus to who you are and what it is you want to be. It needs to obviously align with your values, because who would want to be involved with a brand that they don't personally feel excited and energised about? That would be crazy. So the brand has to align with your values, and you've got to invest heavily in your brand on an ongoing basis. Some of the most successful brands in the world have had tens and hundreds of millions of dollars invested in them. And interestingly now, they appear on the balance sheets of those companies, and they're valued at, in some cases, more than the rest of the company's assets put together, because the real value of the business is in the brand that's been developed over a long period of time. Okay. Who it is you want to be, what is it you want to be, and how do you want that to be represented? Consistent and true, single-minded. Don't ever compromise the brand. It takes a long time to build a brand, but an incredibly short period of time to destroy it. If you had a BMW and you put a Skoda sticker on it, what would that do for the Skoda brand? It wouldn't do much, would it? Because at the end of the day, you'd be focused on and I'm not particularly got a thing in for Skoda or anything, but it's a beautiful BMW, but it's got a Skoda brand on it. But people won't be able to look past the sticker. Conversely, you take a BMW logo and put it onto the Skoda, people are going to go, well, that's a bit of a strange looking BMW, but and then they'll start to think of it differently, because they will see the
so their design team was on drugs.
Yeah, that's right. I'm sure if BMW if that was to continue to occur, and they would continue to put their brand onto a car that looked like a Skoda, over time it's going to kill the brand. But it takes a long time to build it, and a relatively short period of time to destroy it if you're not true to it and consistent to it. But to be true and consistent to something, you need to know what it is you're being true and consistent to. And in my view, that comes a lot back to the values, your personal values, and the values that you've just prescribed for your organisation. Listen to your customers, because what you think your brand is might not necessarily be what your customers think your brand is. And obviously we know the best way to listen to your customers is to seek feedback, gain feedback in all the different ways. And it's great for us to have our head in the sand about what we think we're doing, but if our customers think we're doing something completely different, then that's not going to provide long-term success. The brand does need to evolve. As we talked about, the Coca-Cola and all of the other most successful brands in the world have evolved over time. And for example, our byline now is everybody welcome. It started out as achieving your goals, is what it was when we first purchased Pro Fitness, and it's evolved into beyond achieving your goals into everybody welcome. So the logo's pretty much remained the same. The colours have changed from black and orange to blue and orange. We softened down the black and brought in the blue, and we took away and we brought in the bodies to try and depict it. And so the brand has evolved, but we've always been reasonably true to who we are, which is a professional participant in the fitness industry. But we wanted to be a little bit warmer, so we went from the black and the orange down to the blue and the orange, and brought in some imagery to try and depict who we were trying to be. So it's an example in in the pro fitness business, how we try to evolve the brand. Now, I'm going to show you this clip about BMW. It's only a car, and that's why I chose BMW. This, to me, depicts what brand is a lot about. because I often say to people, what is your product? And if I said that to you guys, what would you say? You're now going to go out and start, running your own PT studios. What is your product? What? Health and fitness? Yep. You? Yep. Any other ideas? What I'd like you to see when you look at this clip is I think product is a whole lot more than health and fitness, a whole lot more than you. It's so many, many different things working together to create what the end result is. And I used the example of BMW and a clip which was done for some of this advertising saying it's only a car, to depict that a BMW, if I say, what's a BMW, guys, you'll say it's a car. Well, in fact, it's a whole lot more than just a car, and you'll see that now. Okay.
It's only a car. A car is a car is a car. With nuts and bolts and leather and cogs and steel and wood and glass, intelligent wipers and head-up displays, alloy and oil, sensors and sound, digital mapping and satellite tracking, twists and turns and smiles and miles, infrared eyes and self-drying brakes and one little key. A car. It's only a car.
So what's that trying to say? So what is a BMW? A lot of things, isn't it? That's pleasure, it's luxury, it's speed, it's but at the end of the day it's also some basic things such as wood and leather and nuts and bolts and screws, intelligent wipers and self-drying brakes. A whole lot of component things that have been shaped and put together by an organisation over a long period of time to produce a product that we all now know and respect, whether you particularly like BMWs or not. And that is what's made the BMW brand the success that it is. It's not just a car. That's the visual representation of it at the end of it. But it's all of those things that are put together and the sequence that they're put together that makes that car what it is. And if you think about that as your business and you're going to go out and set up your successful personal training businesses or your gym businesses, that at the end of the day your product is not fitness, it's not you, it's all of the things that are going to make your brand, your business successful. The way people answer the phones, the way they dress, the way the sessions are conducted, the way the place looks, the way the place smells, the way where it's located, etc., etc., etc. Is it made of wood? Is it made of steel? Is it made of concrete? If you try and draw an analogy with the BMW. So that is your brand. What do you want your brand to be? And your brand is the composition of all those things put together in a picture that we see at the end. Okay. Okay, the third, go past that. If anyone would like me to send that to them, I'm more than happy to do that. People is the third P. And we start with, it's external and internal. You obviously got your internal team. Obviously you're part of that team. And all those other people that are forming part of your team if you are employing people or contracting people. It's the external people that make your organisation successful, your business mastermind group. You've got to have good people to be successful. Okay. A robust and proactive recruitment process or attractment process. You can't wait until you need someone because it's too late. You need to be proactively looking for the people to come and join your team and constantly looking to improve the quality of the people that are on your team. You do that through a proactive process rather than a reactive process. And there's so many different ways that you can do that, and some of you may have been exposed to some of those different ways, and that's up for you to develop. And Where would you look to decide how you're going to go about that? Where would the answer lie?
Business plan.
In the business plan, and specifically in your business values. Yeah. Recruit using the values. Every single recruitment decision we make at Pro Fitness is based around our values. And we do a little bit of values work with the individuals before we make the decision to bring them onto our team, because we want to know if their personal values have a reasonable compatibility with our business values or not. It's a key driver in the decisions that we make. Proactive performance management. Constantly talking to your team about whether they're achieving the goals that have been set. And that also starts with, obviously, managing your own performance and holding yourself accountable to the things that you set out to achieve. But making sure that you have a process, a robust process around managing and giving feedback to people to allow them to improve. And if they're not able to improve, you then need to make those hard decisions sometimes to move them on. Got to reward people. But at the same time, you've got to remove people. People who need to be rewarded just as much as those people who need to be removed. Sad but true. And be willing to do that. Don't be afraid to reward, but equally don't be afraid to remove. And the way in which you go about that will be done in a way that aligns with your values. Yeah. And hire slowly and fire quickly, which is one of my favourite all time. Take your time making the decisions. Some people say that turnover is a costly thing in business. My argument is that having people in your team that shouldn't be in your team is far more costly than the cost of the turnover. So that's just a wee takeaway. Just a wee takeaway. Yeah. Okay, conscious of time. Policy, the fourth P. And I love policy because, it's... But it's, an essential part of business. So you need to systemize your business. Love or hate McDonald's are successful because they have great systems and they're able to reproduce what they do again and again and again, no matter pretty much where you are in the world. And that didn't happen by accident. That happened because they've got great systems in place that you can use to build your business on the back of. And so you have overarching stuff, which we call the policy, if you like. Then you have what I call the protocols, which are more practical at a user level for people to have on a day-to-day basis access to. And then you've got to audit. No point having policies and procedures and systems in place if you don't inspect what you expect. And that's an ongoing challenge for any business. If you set out to do business a particular way, then you need to make sure that it's done that way. And one of our Pro Fitness values, personal leadership, is ownership for the way we do business. Which means there's a way we do business and we all take ownership for doing it. And that's where that value, that's where that particular value came from. Develop and manage them using the values, because all of your policies and everything should represent the values of your organisation. So that when, it's interesting when something doesn't happen the way it's supposed to happen, I can say to a team member, do you mind me asking, in terms of our personal leadership value, why that has been done that way? So you're attacking or discussing the behaviour rather than the person. Okay. Be fresh and energetic. About your policies and systems. Always look to improve them and change them. Link it to your induction and your training, because if you've got great policies and protocols, they're a fantastic tool to help you train someone and induct someone into your business and help them be successful from the outset. And it's a tool to cultivate your business, not to kill it. Sometimes you talk about policies as being something that constrains and holds your business back. I believe it's the complete opposite. If you've got great policies and procedures and systems in place, and you are developing them on an ongoing basis, and you have a fresh and energetic approach, it'll actually cultivate your business, it won't kill it. Those who complain about the protocols and systems in your business are the ones that don't like to comply with them. Okay. The final P, my favourite P, is the profit. It's driven by values. Because you may not be necessarily totally driven by profit. your values, for example, might be more about helping people who are not financially able to help themselves. So that might therefore guide you in terms of what your profit expectations for your business are. If you have this mentality that I've got to achieve a certain return on investment, and in doing so you compromise some of your personal values, well, that's just silly, isn't it? If one of your values is heavily about helping people and making a difference where they are financially challenged, then part of that will be you have to potentially compromise some profit. But that's okay if it's going to allow you to fulfill your personal values. I suggest you focus on return on investment, ROI. Okay? Establish what return on investment that you want and work from the bottom up, and I'm going to give you a really quick example of how to go about that. When I say budget from the bottom up, if I'm saying you want a 25% return on your investment, how would you feel about that? Does everyone know what I mean by the 25% return on investment? Yep, absolutely. So if you put $100,000 into your business, what would your return on that $100,000 be if it was a 25% return? $25,000 after all of your expenses. Okay. If it's 30, then it's 30%. If it's 40, it's 40. You've got to also be realistic about what's achievable. But if it's a lower figure, that's fine, because that's again driven by your values. And if you work from that figure up, taking into account the expense ratios that you might have in your business, it will then tell you what income you need to achieve. And I'll show you what I mean by that. I'll come back to that one, actually out of order. So if we look here, in terms of income and expense ratios, rent, and I'm talking about gyms here, fitness clubs as distinct from PT studios. Your rent should be in the range of 10 to 20% of revenue. If you're paying more rent than 20% of revenue, you're in very expensive space. Okay, very expensive space. But if you're right in the heart of central Sydney, well, in prime space, then your rent might be quite high. 10% is at the lower end. The rent that we pay at our Morehouse Ave club, which is the big one, is about 12% of revenue from that club. So we're in a really, because it's not attractive space for other uses. Fantastic for us, but not very attractive for anyone else. Okay. Your wages should be at the low end around about 25%. At the top end up to about 35% of revenue. Okay. And I'm including you in that, because you need, if you're running the cover, you need to be included in that figure. Your other expenses, your operating expenses, administration type expenses, should be in the range of 20 to 25%. Okay? Of revenue. Is everyone with me? Okay. Which therefore means your net profit before tax will at the low end be 20%, which is 25 plus 35 plus 20 is 80%, which means you're left with 20, or up to 45%, because at this low end, 20%, 25%, 10% is 55%. Everyone follow that? Okay. So if they are you know what your investment in your business is, it's $100,000, and that's you want a $25,000 bottom line, and you know what your expense ratio is. If you work your way up the page, it's going to give you what your income needs to be. Does everyone follow that maths? Okay. If anyone wants to stay behind, I'll show you how to actually do that in an example terms. And therefore you focus back and say, well, if I want to generate this amount of income and I accept that my expenses are going to be this, and I need to make $1 million of revenue to make that end result happen, what do I now have to do to generate $1 million worth of revenue, which is about sales? How many members do I have? How many personal training sessions do I have to complete? And then you've got that then will lead you to say, is that achievable? Is that realistic? Is that unrealistic? Rather than just starting at the top and saying that's what I can achieve, and working your way down to the bottom, just accepting what's left over. Because you might find that what's left over is just an appalling return on investment, and it's not going to fulfill your values. Okay. Focus on yield if you're in the membership business rather than income. What I'm talking about there is the yield per member is far more important than just focusing on the end income, because the relationship of if you can grow the yield that you're getting per member and you grow the number of members, then what's going to happen? You're going to grow your income. But if you just focus on a volume mentality, you forget that the yield that you're getting from the person is far more important. If you take Pro Fitness as an example, when we first purchased it, we had 1,700, well, we didn't have 1,750 members, but that's what we thought we had. The yield was about $360 a year. That's GST inclusive. A yield at the moment across both clubs, and the new club's quite a bit higher because we don't have a lag effect, but it's about $920 a year. So our membership's gone up, but that's happened because we've been good at what we've done. But the thing that I'm most proud of is we've taken our membership fees from $360 right up to close to $1,000. Because that's where the real money is going to be made, as distinct from just growing your membership by a few, maybe 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 a year. If you can do that and you can grow your revenue, then that's when you really, really make hay. So I really encourage you to focus on yield a lot more than you focus on volume. Okay. As I said earlier, you must include a market wage for you in your figures, because you don't get paid out of the net profit before tax. You get paid as one of these expenses. Otherwise, you're just working for wages. You're not working for a return on hard-earned capital that you've slaved to achieve over time. Okay. So that's the profit P, which I've rushed through really quickly. Here's a famous quote from Thoreau, who was a famous philosopher. Go confidently in the direction of your dreams and live the life that you've imagined. And I chose that one because, to me, the dreams link a little bit back into values. Go confidently in the direction of your values could be substituted in there, and live the life that you've imagined. Thanks for today, guys. I've gone slightly over the allocated time. Takeaways from today is clearly about personal values. Take the time, please, to put some flesh on that bone. Look at those values again. Be sure that you've identified the top 5 of them. Put some meaning around them and start making decisions in your life that are going to be about fulfilling those values. And if you take that philosophy in your personal life and also in your business decision making, you're going to have a very full bucket with lots and lots of energy in it. And you'll make great decisions in your business and prepare you towards success. So, thank you. Questions? Anybody been storing any up? Fire ahead.
Ask questions about anything whatsoever. Don't have to do that tonight.
Just make it up if I don't know the answer.
Can you tell your conversion story
from being a fatty to being a skinny? Oh no. Yep.
We have it
I have. Yep. Yep.
Steve, how long did you try to put one bottom on more than one horse? How long did you let that go for?
A year. I actually thought at the time and that I had a pretty good handle on what was happening at Pro Fitness, but I didn't. And it wasn't until I was there full time I went, oh hell. Now I really understand what's going on and what's not going on. And I didn't do justice to either, because I probably wasn't as good a banker in that last 12 months as I had been previously as well. Yep.
Steve, you said about the income from 375 to 900.
Yep.
Is that the dues, or is that average spend per member? Would you increase that to? Or that's just
no, that's dues. Yeah, when I purchased Pro Fitness, there was one personal trainer. We now have, I think, 29 personal trainers across both clubs. Yeah.
So our personal upsell on your membership, is it?
Yeah. Yeah. So when I'm focusing on yield, I was talking about strictly from dues. But we do, on top of that, have focus on yield from personal training. We've got probably about 10%, slightly less than 10% of our income coming from personal training now. Yep.
When you equate that back to your average yield per member,
yeah.
If you've got their membership dues plus their add-ons or whatever other services you provide, or
what does it do?
Lifestyle supplements or something like that comes back to average per member.
Yeah, we
our separate.
we keep it separate. And our trainers are contractors, so we don't have full details of what our members are actually spending in personal training. We can make, and that's always a challenge. We're moving to change that at the moment, so we do get some qualitative information from our trainers. We know how many we've got, and we understand how many sessions they're doing, and therefore how much that translates into total income. But when I'm talking about the income that we receive, it's from rent, basically.
I was going to say, where do you put the rent? Put that into yield per member, or you put that just back into your, your... No, where would you put that?
No, it's a completely separate profit centre.
Profit centre.
And so the yield that I was talking about was from our membership, and on top of that we're getting a yield, which if I translated that into membership, it would probably add $30 or $40 per member, something in that vicinity, I imagine, straight off the top of my head. Yep.
How much rent does your PTs pay?
$225 plus GST a week, but they get pretty well looked after.
Guaranteed price?
The way we start off the contract trainers, we give them free rent for the first 3 months, but in lieu of that they have to do what we call point of sale packs. So our membership consultants will not only sell the membership at point of sale, but sell the personal training in packs of 7 30-minute sessions. That's not true. It's 1 hour and 5 30 minutes, because the first hour there's half an hour of sort of chit chat and half an hour of the first session, and they complete a certain number of packs that equates to the rent during that 3-month period. And if they're good at what they do, they will be able to build a successful client base out of those point of sale packs by converting them into long-term clients. And if they do really, really well, they can elect to start paying rent at any point in time. Yep.
Talking about values, have you shared this smelly man story?
No. Do you want me to share the smelly man story? That's still going on too, believe it or not. Okay. The shortest version is we had a gentleman who joined our Northwood Club who was about my age, about 45, slightly older. And when at the time he joined, he wanted it noted on his file, on his membership file, that he was in transition from being a man to a woman, and which was quite unusual at the time. That he specifically wanted it noted. So I got called and saying, what is our policy on this? And I said, well, actually we don't have a policy on this. If he's welcome to, at this point in time, he's still a man, he's welcome to join the club. So, which he did. Everything went along reasonably well for a period of time. He was using the men's changing rooms because he was still a man, and this is not where the problem lies, but he had extremely bad body odour. And he was spoken to it about on a couple of occasions, and didn't really pick up on it and didn't respond. And the straw that broke the camel's back was when we found that he was washing his clothes in the showers and drying them in the sauna. So I said to Moana, who's the general manager, I said, look, Moana, when she was talking, what we have to do is clearly in our values, we have to get rid of him. And so she had the job of saying to him, look, I'm sorry, I've spoken about your body odour, you haven't done anything about it, but it's just unacceptable behaviour to wash your clothes in the shower and dry them in the sauna, because the sauna smelled really badly. So he left, and the next thing, there's about a fifth of a page article in the Christchurch Press saying transgender man discriminated against. And that then ended up being on me having to go on national TV and defend our decision, and he was claiming that he was thrown out of the gym because we were discriminating against his transgender status, which was just a complete and total nonsense and fabrication. But he got an incredible amount of mileage out of it. I suppose we got a lot of mileage out of it. By and large, good, but there's that sort of thing always has its negative effects. basically what he wanted was he was after some money. He thought he could take us for a ride. He's since gone to the Human Rights Commission in New Zealand to seek them to represent him and pay for a legal case against us. They have refused to do so. But I got a call recently from his son, lawyer, who he's conned into acting for him, suggesting that we might get together and settle. And I said, we've got nothing to talk about, but I'm very happy for him to bring an action against us, because we've got that much evidence of what's transpired.
What he was trying to do.
Yeah.
It sounds like he did as much as he could until you actually kicked him out.
Yeah.
I've been stinking now for days. What else can I do so you get rid of me? I'll wash my clothes and
But it's fascinating what came out of the woodwork about him and his background after it blew up in the press and national TV about what he'd done in other places. I've got, if it ever did, and I was in a situation where I really couldn't disclose fully everything because I'm bound by privacy. So I'm sort of having to defend ourselves without really being able to tell the truth. So,
those operations are expensive. We needed to get that money.
Yeah, that's right. Well, he wasn't going to get it from me, that's for sure. So, and that's happened nearly 12 months ago now, so it's still bubbling away. Yeah.
Still a man. What was the effect on your business when you actually went on?
Down the middle.
Well, I'm sure there was some negative effect because people probably believed him, but by and large everything we heard was very positive, because I think they...
Did you notice it on a bottom line dollar?
No, not at all. No. It's probably, they do say any advertising is good advertising, and I was on national TV for 7.5 minutes or something, so, if I wanted 7.5 minutes on national TV, I couldn't afford it. I'd have to remortgage the house.
Can I just ask, when you were talking about people and profit and things like that, if your values are such that you align yourself with people and helping their journeys to their goals, well, when you're planning and taking into consideration your values, where's your price come from?
Where does our price come from? Well, as in terms of...
If you're passionate about helping people to their result, where do you create the price in which you place on your work to do this service?
Okay.
Because you might give it free if you want to help it.
For people that are conscious about money, and it's more formulated about the way they're structuring their business to a profit, it'll be probably a bit easier. But for those people that swing the other side to be passionate about helping people, well, they're also conscious about how much they can afford, and other values are over that. So where do they place their price on their...
Well, that comes back down to accepting that if you place more value on helping people than you do on profit, you're going to forsake some return on investment. And that's why I suggest start at the bottom. Because if your driver is not that, then you can afford... Your expenses will always be roughly the same, depending on the environment you're in, the setting. But if you want to get your product out to a wider number of people at a lower price point, then you're going to have to accept that you're going to make less of a return. And that's okay if that's going to make you feel fulfilled. If you can say, well, I could put the money in the bank and get the same return on my investment, but I won't feel fulfilled by that. But I can act from an emotional point of view. But if I put that into my business and only get the same return I'm going to get from the bank, but I'm going to feel incredibly fulfilled because I've helped a whole lot more people to have access to fitness that otherwise wouldn't have been able to, well, that's a fantastic outcome, because you've just fulfilled a value in a powerful way. At Pro Fitness, my personal values drove the vision and the mission, and some of that was being, helping people and making a difference, but doing it in a way that allows all three stakeholders to benefit: the shareholders to benefit, the staff to benefit, and the customers. So that meant we had to make a certain return on investment, which means our price point has to be up around the level that it's at, which doesn't make us the most expensive in the market, but it puts us, certainly in the top quarter of the market. Yep. Does that make sense? Yep.
And not all profit goes into your pocket.
No, reinvest, absolutely.
Business, and you create more jobs, you can help more people, and you can build better services, and you can
absolutely. It's a great
It's
point.
amazing the number of personal trainers who don't value their own service. Therefore, their business goes broke 6 months after they set it up because they find it difficult to actually set a realistic price for their product and then charge it and collect it.
Yep.
You know, it's very much helping them. I feel sorry for them. You know, because you get because there are a lot of people who become personal trainers who love helping people. That's one of the main reasons they do it. And the financial aspects of setting up a business take second place to actually, well, I really love helping people.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, they end up not helping people because their business goes broke.
Yep. And when you sit down and you talk to them about that in context of the values, they stop training because they're not feeling fulfilled. The thing they feel fulfilled about is the fact they've helped a lot of people. The thing they don't feel fulfilled about is they haven't earned enough on broke. So that the balance that they haven't, that things have got out of whack, and they haven't been able to sit back and say, well, okay, where do I strike that balance? I need to be fulfilled on both of those values, so my price does need to go up a bit, and I need to accept to get fulfillment there, I'm going to drop some fulfillment somewhere else, or alternatively I've got to come up with some other strategies to make sure I don't drop too far down on the helping people side. Yep.
And I suppose if you're going too low, once you've identified it, that it's too low, to re-educate your clients that you're really worth this now and getting more money out of them.
It doesn't happen.
It's tougher. Yep.
I was just going to suggest that, you just come up with other strategies that actually still feed your values.
Absolutely.
If you make good money, you can help more people.
Yep. Yep. Bingo. Make more, give more. Than yep. That's a great point.
I just share a personal philosophy on that because I run a health club on this philosophy and a personal training business and now a fitness education college. That you run your business so financially successful that when somebody comes along that can't afford it, you can give it to them for free. So you have a scholarship program in a health club as a personal trainer and as a fitness education provider. So it's just, you become so financially successful so you can really help the people that need it.
That's great.
Very, very wow experience when a mother with 4 children who's on a deserted wife's pension comes along and she definitely can't afford to do personal training. You can say to her, you can train with me for free as my gift because I want to help you feel good about yourself. I've got goosebumps thinking that.
Yeah.
You can't do that if you're going broke.
No.
You can't do it if you do it for everybody.
You have to be financially successful to be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good. Fine. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.